So it's 4 p.m. We will bring to order the regular monthly meeting of the Auburn Water District Trustees for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Would someone approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 16, 2025?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 16, 2025.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We have a second. No discussion. I see no discussion. Hands up. All in favor? Thank you. So, Michael Bailey, you're going to do the financial report.
Sure.
Update.
So similar to prior months, revenues are slightly over budget and expenses are slightly under due largely to timing. And again, miscellaneous operating revenue was over budget due to the trade-in credit we got for our old loader and a capacity development grant income that we closed out in 2024. Closed out our 2024 grant. There were 7 principal and interest payments in September totaling $467K. I think that's our most dense month with the debt service. As a result of these payments, cash levels have decreased to $3.4 million, but that amount is sufficient to service existing debt and fund operations. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
I had one thing to comment on. If you guys go to the financial information sheet, I know this is small print, sorry we don't have magnifying glasses out. I personally check this every month because I like to see where I'm at with the project. So if you look at the bottom left, you'll see our equipment and what we've spent on those equipments. And down at the very bottom, you'll see the projects such as, Marion Fourth, the lead and copper, Loring Spring. One thing I was really intrigued by, so this is interesting this year, the city bid out the reconstruction of Loring Ave. As typical with their project, there's a project window where they don't have to complete that work until sometime next year. This particular year, the contractor opted, we're not going to start the work this year. The district had to make the decision, well, do we want to wait until next year when they're digging up the road and then we would do it? If we do it this year, we eat the cost of the pavement, but we get it done ahead of schedule, so we're out of their way for next year. So we made the decision to just do it this year anyways, and I was just happy to see that we came in half of what we had budgeted. So essentially we spent $105,000, we had budgeted $250,000. So it's important because in the coming year, the projects that we're lining up, we're going to be going at it on our own. We're doing the same thing over on Spring Street right now. That's a mill and fill project for future. It's not getting done this year. So that means that we're replacing the water pipe, we're repaving the trenches, and it makes me nervous. It's a big cost to add that paving, but we're still able to do it at a very reasonable cost doing it in-house. So anyways, just wanted you to see that, and because we're going to talk about that later with the budgets.
Mike, adding these tasks to doing in-house, does it impact your manning?
We were planning to do this anyways. The one thing we always do, like we'll bid the work, like the city puts the reconstruction work out to bid, right? And we'll throw in the quantities like, well, how much will they do the water main for? Sometimes we get good numbers, like it's cheap, sometimes we don't. Well, we'll do it. We're not going to pay them that, we'll just do it. So we had factored in that we were going to do it this year anyways. So yeah, no, it didn't burden us. I think we're running a little against the wire on Spring Street, but we're going to get it done. So the pipe is all replaced at this point. We're just hooking up services. So.
I visited with the crew one day. They were doing great.
Yep. Sorry for the detour.
You good? Good. Public comment? Steve?
No comments.
No comment. So we can move on to new business, the 2026 draft budget review.
Everybody get a copy of this? You want to take one and pass it?
Oh yeah, take one down, pass it all around. A lot of paper.
Do you have enough copies? Yep.
So,
Oops, sorry, I can't get one.
Oh, Steve, you were able to get, you know, good.
I was doing something else, but
All right, I'm going to punt this one to Mike. He's going to run you down through this.
Sure. So the caveat that this is kind of a first draft of the budget. We have a lot of assumptions in here and a lot of basically everything plus the kitchen sink as far as the capital stuff goes. So I'll just go through page by page and kind of talk through the highlights. So if you look at page 1, we have in here an 8% rate increase. I don't know if 8% is the number, but The last time we raised rates, I believe, was 2020. Does that sound right? And we're kind of lagging behind our peers. I think we have near the lowest rates in the state. So we kind of need to do these gradual increases, or we're going to be stuck with a large, kind of painful increase down the line. So we ran with 8% for now. The way this budget is put together, it assumes that that's going to be in place for 2/3 of the year. So we kind of prorate that to give us some time to actually implement the rate increase. One other thing to note here is we assume a 0% increase from growth usage. We have the big meter changeout project this year, which we think would increase efficiency by about 10 to 15%, but we don't know exactly when we're going to get all the meters in there. We're not sure if we're going to be able to bond the money. So there's a lot of gray area where we haven't. We went with a conservative approach and haven't factored in any growth in those numbers the way they stand right now. So that's page 1. Page 2, not much going on here, just a bunch of averages from prior years. Electricity went up a bit. Page 3, there's a big increase in customer billing and accounting for our new MuniLink billing software. And also this meter changeout that we have, there's software that goes with that for like leak detection, the customer portal and things like that. So that's a bit of a jump this year from where it's been in the past. Moving on to page 4, you'll see that I have a 2026 meter bond in here, assuming that we'll bond $2.7 million to fund this meter changeout. The most recent estimate we got from EJP was like 2.66, something like that. So I think 2.7 would get us there. On the following page, just the debt.
You're going a little too fast.
Oh, sorry.
For me here.
No worries.
I'm not following you at all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So on page 4, what were you saying?
At the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom of current indebtedness, so
Okay.
2026 meter bond. So that's an assumption that we're going to take out a $2.7 million bond to fund the meter change out.
Good.
What is the timing of that?
So the spring issuance of the bonds is in March. So we would have to go to city council, get approval to bond money. We would apply for the spring issuance. If we were awarded the bonding, we could have that in hand by April.
Yeah, so in the city council, you're in the January, February time, right?
Yep.
That's fine.
Yep.
Page 5 is just the debt payment schedule. We did have one bond mature in 2025, so that's about $65,000 in debt service that we don't have going forward. You'll notice too, we have, in the coming years, we have a lot of bonds that are kind of maturing, so it'll ease up our debt service. I estimated a 20-year bond for the meter bond there. The following page, page 6, is the watershed budget. This is up a little bit too from last year, and this is the biggest factor is the septic inspection program. So there was some grant money that was offsetting expenses in prior years, and then the way the schedule works out, we're inspecting more in 2026 than we have in the past. That's the reason for the jump there. Page 7 is vehicles. Not much is going on here. The only thing is there was a vehicle, number 38, that was traded in that I still have on the budget here, so I gotta get rid of that. But other than that, it's just taking prior year data. So page 8 is payroll. So one big change in payroll with this budget is we budgeted for a new position for an engineer tech, with the hopes that they can use our new asset management software to build out our fixed asset inventory and kind of help us with that long-range capital planning, for trying to figure out when we need to replace certain items we're lacking in that area right now. So that it's a full-time job setting up something like that. So this would be a good project for this new position.
Who's doing that? Who's doing the work, that work right now?
Nobody's done
Right.
No, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like, well, we had the problem, 15 years ago, and it's just kind of,
it. We'd really like to get this type of work done, help us with our financial planning,
yeah.
so we're budgeting for it.
Yeah, so that person would be 50% water and sewer. We also budgeted for a 2.7 COLA increase. I think that's what it's looking like the Social Security index is going to be. So we ran with that for the budget. Following page, health insurance. So we're still waiting for from Cross to see what the actual rate increase is going to be. premium increase is gonna be this year, but we went with a 10% increase to just fill out the budget and kind of see where we're at. So I think in the next couple weeks, we'll get final numbers there.
Last year, there was no increase, was it? Minimum, very minimal.
It was like 8 point.
Yeah, it's
something.
8%.
Yeah.
It was 8%.
3 years,
I thought it was lower than
three
that.
years
Yeah.
before that, 3 years in a row, we had a 0% increase.
There, thank you, okay.
Yeah.
3 years in a row, 0, wow. Okay, that's what I remember.
So next page is the equipment summary page. Again, this is kind of everything in the kitchen sink as with what's been requested of us. You can see too, we have the fixed asset software budgeted down there, Lumen, for the new employee.
I do anticipate auditing this list a little bit and about $100,000 worth of, again, every year we meet with staff and say, okay, everybody tell us what you want. And everybody gets like wish list stuff in and we kind of go down through it, make sure it's viable and something we need, and then we put it on this list, and we basically, as Mike said, this is everything in the kitchen sink. But there are some things in here, just logistically and staffing wise, that, you know, I would probably take off the list, but just for the budgeting purposes, we put it on there. But there may be some slight modifications between now and November. It'll be reduced, essentially.
Then the following page is just our capital projects. One thing I wanted to mention with this is in the past, we've budgeted money for LCRR. But talking with EJP and their contractor, we think that we can have, during the meter replacement, we can have them identify the customer unknowns that we still have. So in theory, if we replace out all these meters, we'd have 100% of our customer unknowns taken care of. So we decided not to budget specifically for LCRR this year and just kind of wrap that in with the meter work that we're going to be doing. Yeah, but I know that's a lot, and I flew through that pretty fast. So if anyone has any questions, feel free.
I know we're pretty far ahead of schedule from where we were last year. We didn't have a finance director last year this time. Mike's done a great job of pulling this stuff together and, you know, preparing this for this meeting. You know, generally, if you guys have any comments or concerns between now and November, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Mike. We're gonna look at a draft again in November. If we need to workshop any items, you gotta remember some items are shared, like if there's a belief that we shouldn't add this new employee that's shared between both districts, you know, we could have set up a workshop between the two districts so that we could discuss it. Stuff like benefits being the health insurance and the COLAs, if there's, you know, one board says, yeah, we wanna do that, and the other board says, no, we don't think we should do that. Those kind of things that both boards need to be aligned on the decision making. So again, if we need workshops, the time would be between now and the December meeting. So if you have comments, feedback, get that to us. We will have another revised draft in November to review. We made some assumptions here that we would do all of the meter replacements next year. We could revise that. We could say, well, let's do half the meters next year, do the other half the year after. If we were gonna, like I said, everything in the kitchen sink, I'd like to just do it all in one foul swoop, get it done, but we could offset that rate increase and say, well, we'll only bond $1.5 million next year and do half the meters, and then in 2027, we'll do the other half. We could do that. There's a lot of options that we could do, but just, again, this is just for discussion purposes to get this rolling. This is what we've just thrown it all into one, so.
What's the objective for the final? When would you like to have it?
I would like both boards, so what we typically do is in December, the sewer district will meet on the third Tuesday as they always do, and they'll generally be in agreement on the draft that's presented at that time. Water will meet the following day on the third Wednesday following the third Tuesday. They'll have their regular meeting, take the similar decision, like we're happy with this budget. We then open up a public hearing, generally around 5 p.m. of that evening of the water trustee meeting. The public has been invited. If there's any comments on our budget approvals, we give a little presentation. Usually when nobody shows up, the both boards vote on the bottom line number of the budgets, and we're essentially good for 2026. So that's generally the schedule that we do that one.
End of December.
Yep.
Got it.
I have a couple of questions for you,
Absolutely.
Mike. So the bonding for the meters, is that just for the equipment, or does that include the installation?
Installation, everything.
Okay, and then I noticed in here on the equipment schedule, what's your typical approach here to saying, because you have capital money in effect in the budget and you have bonding. So what's the cutoff to decide that you're going to do this just in the budget or you're going to bond?
So,
Like there's I think Mike might have a page on, there's $100,000 truck in here. But we've got bonds for trucks in the past, so.
yeah, the truck that's needed is actually a sewer district purchase, and it's a crane truck, so it's a little bit more expensive than your average 3/4 ton
Sure.
pickup truck, so that's why it's $100K. Typically, we haven't bonded or borrowed for like the fleet trucks. We have for the dump trucks and the bigger equipment, we bonded and leased and done different options for those. And we certainly could do that with these, but we were just kind of looking at funding, you know, out of
So
cash
I'm
essentially.
going the other way,
Okay,
right? So, so I understand what you said, that makes sense. But I think we should think about some policy about what the cutoff is, because if you can do it, you're better off, even for things like dump trucks, to include them in your budget and avoid the interest payments, right? And so, we should think about that going forward, right? Should we set a threshold and say if the equipment's above this, we're gonna bond it, if it's below this, we're just gonna have a capital improvement line in the budget and just pay for it?
that's a really good point, and one thing I'd like to make is, some of you may not have this history on this. For many, many years, this district had its budget situated such that it had cash to fund main replacements and equipment purchases. So when we last raised our rates in 2020, we increased our cash flow so that we essentially would have $1 million for capital work every calendar year. And that had been a philosophy that the board had had for many years, and it kind of built it to that way. Through the pandemic, there was some uncertainties. There was a time when we couldn't shut people's water off for not paying their bills because COVID. And all of a sudden, we had a dip in our cash coming in. We had no enforcement ability to make people pay, and the board decided moving forward, we didn't want to use our cash for projects that we wanted to bond. So we wound up bonding $2 million the next year to fund our capital. So we're kind of left in this limbo land, but yet when we bonded that, we still had enough cash built in our budget that we had a lot of cash. And then we had the $2 million, so we had even more cash. So we've been kind of doing okay for the last, 5 years. But here we are, we've got a lot of big projects coming up. We're trying to do a 1/2 mile of pipe replacement. We got to purchase some heavy equipment, and we want to replace the meters. So we're using some of our cash reserves towards that, but in the end, we're going to need to bond. With the rate increase, we're gonna need to bond $2.7 million to do the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, so I guess my point is, this is on page 10, there's some of these things that from an accounting standpoint would be considered capital equipment, right?
Yeah.
Because they're durable goods. And we should just think about that going forward and figure out what our strategy should be to the extent that we can, the higher threshold we can have, the better we are financially in the long run. Right, but you gotta have the cash to pay for it, but it's something we don't need to adjust it in here, it's just something to think about going forward.
Definitely.
Maybe when we adopt our financial plan, that could be something that we
Yeah.
set those standards.
Yeah,
And that would be really helpful for us,
Yeah.
because then that would help us standardize moving forward, this is how we're gonna do this.
Right,
And
exactly.
that would be great.
And then the last question I have is, what's the duration of the application for a rate increase, right? Because my recollection, this might be wrong, from prior meetings is, we can do like 2 or 3% a year for so many years in a row without having a rate filing with the PUC, but if we're asking for 8, or something in that area, presuming we have to do a rate filing, how long does that take?
Roughly takes about 2 months, but 3 months conservatively, so we're saying we would, if the budgets get approved as such, and we agree by December that we're gonna
Right,
do
so
an
that's where
8%
the
increase,
2/3 come.
come January, I would start the process. We have to file intent with PUC, we have to notify all customers, we need to hold a public hearing, and then we need to take a vote at a meeting. And essentially, if you lay it out in the past, you look at previous rate increases, 2 months, you can do that.
Yeah, so it's a fairly short duration.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And you're right, there are like 3 different ways that you can effectively change the rates of the district, 3 different filing methods. If it's less than 3%, I believe, you can essentially skip the public hearing process, still gotta notify the customers, you directly file this with PUC, and then you have up to 2 years to raise your rates up to 3%. And it's kind of like an abbreviated process to raise your rates, but where we need more than 3%, we're just kind of looking at the, the standard rate increase method. But
So this is 8% increase, and we haven't had a raise since 2000?
2020.
I mean 2020,
Yeah.
I mean 2020. So that's a long time for quite a while without a rate increase. So 8% isn't bad at all from what I see.
And is 8% just to balance the budget, or does that leave a margin? 'Cause
That balanced the budget.
yeah, so that's something we probably wanna talk about, because if you're gonna go through a rate increase, you probably don't wanna do the rate increase just to balance the budget for this year. You probably wanna give yourself some margin,
Year or two,
right?
yeah.
So that you don't have to come back as frequently. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's something for the board to talk about.
Because
Yes.
5 years, I wouldn't call that frequent. I mean,
Well, no, but if we do 8 right now to balance the budget, so what happens 2 years from now?
Right.
Right? I mean, it's just something we need to think about, because I look at it that you're better off just to do this every once in a while at a larger amount than you are to nibble away with frequent rate increases.
I know I forwarded some of you, Dennis Bergeron had tipped me off to it, he still gets alerts from PUC. That rate increase that was up in, I think it was Fort Penn, they just had a 75% rate
Oh, yeah.
increase. It was in the newspaper earlier this week, at the end of last week. Vassalboro Sewer District just raised their quarterly sewer bill to $600 a quarter.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
they
that's,
only have like 203 customers, so
right.
how do you run a sewer district with that few?
yeah, but again, we're not certainly in that boat, but it's certainly worth thinking. I think 8% is a pretty good number to balance this year's budget. We are gonna see a revenue increase from the meter replacement, and we'll know much better where that's at December of 2026 than we will right now. So when we look at the end of next year and say that like, okay, we might be good for 2027, but we should probably plan on that 1 to 2% for, and then who knows, maybe at that time we might be looking at facilities or filtration, which may have other rate implications, but that's kind of where we're at with this.
The labor for the meter replacements, who is providing that?
So it's part of the installation fees through EJ Prescott.
EJ Prescott, and so minimal hours.
They
For our-
will do all the customer correspondence, send the mailings, schedule the appointments, install the meters as part of the meter installs. They have a whole checklist that they do, they'll do our LCR inspections, they'll do all of that as part of that. I think their quote was like, what was it, $100 an install
Something like that, yeah.
for smaller diameter meters. Larger diameter meters was more. It takes 2 people to put in the big ones, but.
Okay, so nobody in the water district really has to be hands-on on that?
The only thing that we have to do is manage the inventory. We're gonna have 5,000 water meters coming in and going out, and manage the import. They just give us basically a download file at the end of the week. Hey, we installed 67 meters today, and we just upload it into ours, so now our billing software is up to date, and we're moving forward.
Okay.
You're gonna take the old read, put in the new read, put in the serial numbers, there's that whole process, but.
So 2 questions, and neither one's real relevant, but I'm gonna ask anyhow. One, how do you handle a home which is just not occupied very often? In other words, snowbirds or people that may be only here 2 months a year.
Most of the snowbirds call us and we shut the water off and remove the meter every fall.
Okay.
And then we put it back in the spring. And that
Okay.
would be perfect too. When we put it in the spring, we're putting in a new one.
So that part's okay.
Yeah,
Secondly, What happens to the old meters?
So that's our property, they're all brass, there's gonna be some scrap value.
You destroy
They would
them?
be, they would be scrapped.
Destroy them?
Yeah, we're actually getting quotes, there's companies that wanna buy them as is, and they're gonna give us a great price. You know, we could,
That's what I was gonna ask.
yeah,
is
it
there no-
dollars be like $100,000 in scrap value coming back from those meters, but
Okay.
Sweet.
not a ton of money, but it's just dollars and cents.
Well done, Mike.
Mike, the facilities, you know, that we're gonna be talking about in a few minutes, is that, none of that's gonna impact 2026 budget?
I don't have that in the budget right now, I mean, we haven't finished the assessment yet. I didn't think we were gonna move forward with that next year. The only thing, I am getting, not pressure on me, but people are letting me know about properties. You know, the city's kinda sent me a couple things, hey, you might wanna consider this one, it's on the market right now. I'm not at that point yet, I don't know if the districts are at that point yet, I think we need to get through the assessment, figure out, well, do we need a 3-acre lot, or do we need a 10-acre lot? And then once we figure that out, we could factor that into, you know, I just don't think we're gonna be able to do it next year. Obviously, if the right lot was there, we do have cash reserves in both districts. If it was, you know, we need to buy this lot, we would have the money to do it.
Maybe we can take a mortgage out on it.
Oh, we could,
Make
yeah.
payments on it.
I mean, both districts have,
Oh, we'll trade our old meters for the lot.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
How about 7,000 brass meters?
What do you say?
Everybody good?
Yeah.
How about draft water and sewer expansion?
Yes, so I sent you all the full report, the draft report that came in from Ray Pierce. It's 45 or 50 pages long, so I didn't want to put the whole thing in the packet, but I did excerpt section 4 through 5, which covers the water part, really the recommendation part of the analysis. Again, the city is looking at expanding. This is one of the potential areas that they outlined. The city funded this study to really specifically look at these areas, the outer broad, this section. So the consultant went down through this. A couple of things that they did, I was a little concerned about our ability to serve the fire protection for this new extension and whether or not we would have to activate our Ipswich storage tank. So they did a water storage analysis. They looked at the impact of the customers that could potentially come in through this, you know, by looking at the different types. So there's all kinds of information in there on that. Essentially, it came back that we do have adequate storage, so they did not feel that we needed to necessarily activate the tank based on this. But there are several properties within this extension area that they're high enough in elevation that they would need a limited service agreement with us for us to serve them. So that was outlined in this, and that is shown on the map. So if this did go in, we'd be able to show people, if you buy this lot, you're gonna need a limited service agreement.
Which is a pump.
They would have to have a booster pump in the basement. Yep. Our requirement is that we have 20 PSI at the service box out in the street. Anytime we're below that, we have to tell them, well, if you want water, we have low pressure. If you agree to put a pump in, we'll serve you. That's essentially what that is. The cost estimates, this kind of eye-opening. It really kind of expounds on what it is, what it costs to extend water and sewer. The sewer estimate was quite a bit more than this. If you saw in the full report, obviously they needed 4 wastewater pump stations to get the sewer through this area, and each station had an average cost of like 1.1 million. So it really added a lot. The sewer estimate was just up over 15 million. The water estimate to loop 12-inch water main through this area at roughly $250 a linear foot, not including some of the other crossings and ledge and other stuff. You know, roughly you're looking at, you know, $8.2 million to do this extension. So it's good information to have. It can help us if some parts of this project get done, then we have the numbers to at least to plan around that. I did, after the last trustee meetings, reach out to Verrill Law, Mike Hodgins, and I provided them the information I had given to the trustees last month, which essentially is the PUC Chapter 65, the main extension clause, and asked them, like, hey, what is it possible for the district to contribute funds towards, you know, main extensions? They Did not give me a firm answer yet. They told me by the time of the next meeting, we will have a memo kind of outlining that. But basically, they said you would have to follow that PUC clause, and that generally it is not the practice of public utilities to invest in extensions. So they're gonna get us a formal response on that. So I hope to have that next month.
And Mike, we have a similar report for South Main and Vickery area.
Yes, yep,
Yeah, so, well, Bruce is on the comp plan committee with me, so our next meeting, next week, we're gonna start into the growth districts, you know, the future land use piece. And it's very likely part of that discussion to set the growth area is going to be dependent on water and sewer and potential expansion areas. So I think both those studies will be important for that. And then I guess the question I have is, if new water and sewer is run, what's the obligation? I'm assuming if it's a vacant lot, if it's then developed, they have to connect. What's the obligation for existing lots?
so there is no obligation for existing lots, but if something were to happen to their well or to their septic, the state plumbing code says if you have public utilities within 200 feet of any portion of your lot, you must connect. So if somebody's well fails, if their septic needs work, they would not be able to get a permit to replace their leach field or replace their tank. They would be required to hook to public utilities. So that's in the state plumbing code.
Okay.
But we would not be, there
Okay.
are some utility districts and some municipalities out there that have adopted a clause that's called a readiness to serve. We do not have that here in Auburn, which essentially is to say if I ran a sewer pipe by Mike's house, because the pipe's there, we're ready to serve, we can charge you. We don't have that in Auburn, and we've never done that, but what we have done is when we put public utilities in, and then when it comes about that somebody needs something in the future, well, you're not gonna be able to fix that, you need to connect to the public utilities. So that happens pretty regularly.
Great, okay.
I have one quick question.
Yep.
On section 5,
Yeah.
it says 900 feet of 12-inch water main on South Washington Street. And then upstairs is Washington Street South, existing water infrastructure. I'm looking on here and it looks like that's Washington Street North. Is that just a?
That is Washington Street North, not Washington Street South.
Okay.
That's a typo on their
So,
part.
okay.
I will
alright.
get that back to them, this is the draft report, so I am waiting to have a meeting, we're looking to have a meeting with city staff, myself, and the consultant, so I'll bring that forward. Thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Good catch, yeah, I
Yeah.
read it too, I didn't catch that.
I mean, yeah.
Well, one map is a little easier than the other one.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Again, if anyone has any questions on that, or concerns, or comments, feel free to reach out. Like I said, we're gonna have a go-over with the consultant on this in the city, and assuming if any comments come back from the city, we'll accept it as a formal report and have it on file for future use, such as comp plans and stuff like that.
How was it, sorry, how was it decided that it would be Broad Street down to Hackett Road and then over to Washington rather than South Main Street by the old golf course? in
This is what the city told, you know, I hear from Eric Cousins on this stuff, and that's what I was told that the city was interested in.
Okay.
That wasn't a decision that we made. You tell us what you want, and we'll have the consultant do
So
it.
you know, I live in the area, so to me, it just seems like there's a lot more potential Vickery Road, South Main Street out that way than there is on Broad Street, which, you know, borders the Little Androscoggin and.
So the city's issue is both, right? But it's two, that's why I asked about the other study. It's two separate studies, so the whole area the city was talking about was South Main Street out to
And both,
Vickery and this piece that we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
today.
and this dead ends on South Witham Road, you know, which you just pick up and then
Right,
go back
right,
to South Main
exactly.
Street. I read that. You know, so, okay.
Sorry, just one more.
Yeah.
Currently, there's no sewer on Washington Street North.
not in that area. no.
Okay, but there will be? with
That's
this
what
one?
they're looking at, yeah.
Okay,
What's the old, it's now like a church, it used to be a restaurant.
Orlando.
Rolando,
yeah.
yeah. So there's sewer there. So
There's-
this would essentially,
there's sewer, yeah, there's sewer to the home right there on
yeah.
Fillmore. I think there's
Oh,
sewer.
yeah, the nursing home.
Nursing home?
Yes, that has sewer.
Okay,
That's like the last customer on that run, and that all goes back to Rodman that way. It doesn't come that
all
way.
right, that'll be good. There's a lot of customers that,
There could be, yeah.
yeah, could be, to take advantage of that, including that trailer park. So, I know one will hook up right away.
Well, we love new customers, and it's just, and obviously the biggest factor is, well, the cost of putting it there.
Yeah.
That
You know,
trailer
the
park
sewer-
doesn't
the
have
sewers-
sewer.
No.
No, it doesn't.
I'm curious because I think I've heard it before, I don't know, it was different, you know, podcast, but it was, even if a development came in and they gave you everything, you know, when come time to replace it all, often they're not even taxed enough or paying a high enough rate to then replace, you know, the infrastructure, so to then, for the district to take on, you know.
Well, you're absolutely right, we gotta look at that too, so, you know, I sent the full report, if you go back and you look at like, the sewer stuff to me is particularly a little bit more burdensome because we're taking on 4 new stations, right? At $1.2 million a piece.
Yeah,
And, you know, sewer pump stations, they don't last forever.
no.
You know,
no.
they're in some tough environments, the
Right,
electronics, the pumps, they're wear items.
yeah,
In 20 years from now, they're gonna have to be rebuilt.
right,
At
right.
least gutted, and then slide rails, everything replaced because
Right.
it corrodes, and it is what it is. So if we took on ownership of those, would we be taking in enough rates to essentially
Right,
start depreciating at a fast enough rate to
Right.
fund the replacement in 20 years? It's a big
Yeah.
question.
yeah,
Right, and this is gonna get into this whole thing that Mike Hodgins is looking at, right? Because there's a general premise. 30-something years ago, the legislature passed a statute, that's what Mike's looking at, that in general prohibits a public utility from using ratepayer funds to extend their
Exactly.
network.
yeah,
But the premise of that is that then the rates would cover maintenance for the whole network. So you know, theoretically, if you did this and said, well, whatever customers we have here, even this is fully built out, the rates won't cover the maintenance from those customers. It's spread across all customers in the district.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely, you know, the water isn't as, you know, there's no booster stations or reservoirs to build as part of this, so it's a little bit more palatable that the maintenance costs for this really, they should be paid by the new customers that are gained. But the sewer, you really have to look at it, are we gonna take in enough money to justify 4 new pump stations? There's a lot there, if it really builds out, it certainly could, but we'd have to look at it. You'd hate to see all that go in and then nobody connected. And then, well, all the customers and ratepayers that are currently being charged are now paying for this infrastructure. Well, it's like the Field of Dreams, you built it, but nobody showed up. Uh-oh. That's called Poland. But anyways. Anyways, off topic.
Anybody else? Mike?
Yeah, that's all I had.
Shall we move on to the 5 old business facility assessment update?
Yeah, just quick updates on the rest of these, just to kind of give you statuses of where we're at. So Weston and Sampson is working on the facilities assessment. They've been doing good work. Everything is on track to be completed on time. We've completed the portion where we looked at the garage space. We completed the review and comment period on the administrative space. They now know how many square footage we need, and they're starting to look at zoning, available lots, and this is the most recent memo that I got, so I just threw it in the packet so you could kind of see some of the back and forth that's going on. As soon as we have a draft report from them, it'll be in our packets for us to review and discuss, but essentially that will show conceptual layouts of new facilities, what it would look like on this lot, what it would look like on potentially other lots around the city, and other considerations. But no, the project is going really well, and it's on schedule to be completed before the end of this year.
cool.
That's all I had on that.
Great, so we have a water quality update.
Water quality update, the quality of the water is really good. Unfortunately, the quantity of water, precipitation continues to be well below average. I know it's rained the last couple of days this week, which is great. I looked this morning and I could see the lake went up 0.2 of an inch from the last two storms. It's like 1.6 inches of rain this week, which is great, we need it, but we're way behind. If you can see from the trend that I sent out, you can see we're about where we were in 2016, and before that, we're gonna be approaching some historic lows of Lake Auburn. The water is down essentially 2.5 feet around the lake. So there's very little inflow coming into the lake and very little precipitation. We're not in crisis mode. The Lake Auburn watershed area right now is in what's classified as a severe drought. So we're still in the thick of it. Let's keep doing our rain dance and hopefully this continues and we'll be all right. As part of the water quality update, Danielle does these reports for me every month. It's basically an update on her efforts as watershed work. We did not have any commission meetings in the last month, so this is just kind of a nice update to see what's going on. There's lots of stuff going on. We're doing lots with septic inspection. They're working very closely with the city to get those done. We're starting to get a pretty good clip of them going on. It's picking up some traction, so hopefully that number will keep cranking in, getting a bunch of them before things freeze up this fall. They just had their second public outreach session that I went to here in October. There was some good feedback that came in and questions, so that was really good. We continue to work on the erosion that we found out by Salmon Point. We're continuing to work on that and trying to develop a plan for that moving forward. I don't really have anything to report other than it's going to be a tricky project. It actually might be solving itself naturally, which is really good, but we have to continue to monitor that. Essentially, the erosion has gotten to the point where it's undermined the trees, and the trees are now falling into the lake, but that actually is a good natural buffer, so it'll actually naturally regenerate. So, I don't know, we're requesting a site meeting with DEP to have them look at it to see what they think. It might not be worth the effort. It'd be one thing if there was a road there right now, we could go in there and fix it, but you have to do an awful lot to just get equipment there, and is the juice worth the squeeze? We don't know yet, so we're working on that. But yeah, I don't know if anyone had any.
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right, to get over there and,
I like that.
I
gotta write it down.
is it worth building a road in there and taking out acres of trees to get in there?
I just like the statement.
Oh,
Good one.
that's an oldie but a goodie, yeah.
So Mike, on the water quality update, on something completely unrelated to this, I ran into Maine Public Radio reporter who's working on a story about the drought and wanted to know from me, they weren't actually working on the story that I ran into them, but about not the lake level, but the availability of quantity of water to service the customers. And I told them, well, in general, I think the water level's down in the lake, but right now, that doesn't seem to be a problem. But they said, as they get working on the story, they'll probably call, and if they do, I'll send them your way, because I'm assuming that while it's down, there's still no risk to providing water through the distribution network.
Essentially, we still have 15 feet of water cover above our intake pipe. And when you expand that over the acreage of the lake, it's billions and billions of gallons of water, of freeboard we still have. It's concerning. We don't like seeing it this low.
Sure.
We went out, we've been documenting, we're seeing outcroppings of rock that have not been seen in a really long time. And, we're a little concerned about, if we had a big wind event and you start getting wave action to parts of shoreline that hasn't been exposed, this could create phosphorus situations where you're now, stirring up water that we don't want stirred up. So, yeah, hoping it continues to rain.
Lakeshore Drive MPI.
Yeah, Lakeshore Drive MPI, I threw a little excerpt in there. This is really moving along great.
Nice.
So they came up with 2 alternatives. Essentially, there would put in one big box culvert or potentially put in 2 box culverts. They are leaning on the 2 box culverts for several reasons. I could share the report and explain why. The nice thing about the 2 box culverts, one, it saves a little bit of money because it's easier to buy 2 small structures than it is to buy one really large structure and then transport it on site. 2, the ease of construction installation. So essentially, you could leave the existing culvert in place, install one of the box culverts, then use that as you're now getting water out of the watershed, and then install the second structure beside it. It just, the ease of construction is much better, rather than kind of like what they did on Stetson Road, this giant wide open pit, and it was, they're pumping around. You wouldn't have to do that, and that's better for water quality too. We don't want them pumping and disturbing soils if we don't have to. So yeah, I'm happy to see that they've come up with a preliminary estimate. The plan is to have this fully designed by the end of this year, get it out to bid, get it awarded and constructed next year. Kind of nice too, don't want to jinx us, but the price is looking really well. If you remember, we got $1.5 million to complete this work. Their estimate right now, the work is like, $623,000 to do this. We still have to pay for the engineering, permitting, and some other stuff, but we're well below the 1.5, which is good. So anyways, that's moving along really well.
You'd have to close the road for this?
Yes, we are assuming a road closure. And we have talked about, I insisted that we put extra money in the project budget to insert proper signage and as much public education and outreach as we could do as possible to make sure we don't impact businesses. The unfortunate part about this, because it's in-stream work, you have a very tight window in which you have to do it, and that happens to be right in the middle of summer. So that would have to be closed
Yeah,
in the middle of summer.
there's one particular business that would be impacted.
There would be, yep. So we haven't broached that subject yet because we're still in the design phase, but once this kind of gets finalized, that'll be the first conversations that we start to have and get through this.
Okay.
So.
A couple of weeks,
The work itself, I think they were,
road
the
closure.
actual road closure, they felt like they could do it in 2 weeks. So
It's not bad.
it's not horrible.
Even in the summertime, it's not
If
bad.
you
I think I'm
kept,
hitting a lot of golf balls those 2 weeks.
if you did this and left one lane open, they anticipate the project would take 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
juggling
Right.
those lanes just slows things down a lot. So ideally, do it all at once.
And it could cost more too.
Or would cost significantly more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no other go-around from there, is there?
There's ways around, but it's in their report, I believe, it's like it's a few miles.
Yeah, it's
I
inconvenient.
can't even think about how.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think, for the people that live up there, right? But it's inconvenient for the business.
It
and
certainly is.
So people are probably not gonna wanna do that to go out there.
When do they close? Are they closed now?
They're
Oh, yeah.
closed now.
Oh, yeah,
They
So
close
could it be
like-
done,
Week after Labor Day, maybe?
Yeah.
No.
yeah, could it be done the week after
No.
Labor Day?
No,
No, we have
because
to
the
be done
DEP window.
before the end of July, I believe. The in-stream work window is very tight, yeah. I'd have to look, it's in the full report, but you'd have to do it in the middle of summer.
And it's not something that would be done.
But the water is the
pre-season.
lowest right now, wouldn't that be the best?
Well, it is right now because of the drought, but normally it's not.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And this is a statewide.
Yeah, this is not just because it's Auburn thing, this
No,
is,
no, I
yeah,
understand.
anywhere.
And it can't be done pre-season to the business?
No,
Okay.
no. It's a tough one.
Save
Good.
money for mini golf.
That's one.
So we can move on to the infrastructure planning study for Lake Auburn water supply.
Yes, just a quick update, I didn't have any excerpts in there, we actually had a big meeting yesterday, it was about a 4-hour meeting. It was a good one. We have a lot of good data, I was kind of hoping to have a few slides I could show you, but they didn't send me the presentation. They've essentially looked at all the historical data of Lake Auburn, they've plotted a lot of interesting points. Again, the objective of this analysis is to determine, when should we as a community start planning on filtration? What does the data suggest? And 2, is it better to do an intake extension and then build the plant, or build the plant, don't worry about an intake extension, or vice versa, is it a mix of the two? There are some issues that, filtration plants don't solve everything, and you still can't have high turbidity events caused by wind because your intake pipe is too shallow. But if you look at the data over the last 20 years, the wind events that we've had that have kicked up turbidity have only lasted a few hours. Does that really, and it's never prevented us from, okay, we shut down for the 2 hours, the wind stops, we start pumping water again. So again, we're really looking into that. I do suspect, this project is going on as planned. I suspect this will be completed by the end of the year, and we'll have a nice report with some preliminary estimates and suggestions on, filtration methods, locations, recommendations on timing, and the same on the intake pipe. So it's going along really well.
Mike, is there any consideration in the work that they're doing for alum dosing stations
Yes.
and/or dredging?
They're not those specifically, but they're looking at those as part of, again, as I said, filtration plants don't solve everything. You still can't have algae blooms in the lake when you're filtering the water, because some algae, when it decays, it has cyanotoxins. And even though you may be treating that, you then have toxins in your water. So it would be likely that, those types of things would still have to be on the table as far as would we need to do alum treatments or set up some dosing stations in the watershed and do filtration.
Right, so they're, it's not as necessarily as complex as the filtration station to do the alum dosing, but are they gonna have any recommendations about that, of whether we should think about that, what the time frame is? I know we've talked in the past about dredging, especially the inlet.
Or the basin, yeah.
For the basin.
Yeah, no, that's part of what they're doing,
Okay.
and, looking at the numbers yesterday with them on the report, it's very evident that the alum dosage that we applied to the lake was very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Phosphorus numbers have been very low, turbidity has been very good since that treatment. And those benefits aren't gonna last forever. They will, the alum dosage that we put in was very small, and, in 5 to 6 years that could wear off, and that's gonna be part of what they come back and say in our sequencing of things that we need to be looking out for is either future alum dosing applications or considering of dredging, or how that impacts filtration and intake relocation. So
Okay, great.
there's a lot of moving parts with it, but that's all I had on that.
Project update, numbers.
Yeah, project update, I kind of touched on it, Spring Street, so we've now replaced all the water main on Spring Street. We have 6 services left to tie over. I expect that we will have that work done at the end of this week. And then we will be paving Spring Street next week. And then that'll be the end of our construction projects for this year. We will likely do some LCR work, some hydro excavating to determine unknowns on our side. Probably through the remainder of the fall and in through December. So, but as far as the construction projects, we'll be wrapping that up. The northeast paving project, we're still kind of dealing with that. They're gonna be surface paving the next 2 days during the day, so if you're out traveling around, avoid Center Street the next 2 days, because they're gonna be out there. Meter replacements, we're right on schedule. We've put in about 120 new cams trucks. The data continues to be very eye-opening and positive, and we're really excited about future larger scale projects, so that's going really well. The last thing I had is our terms and conditions update that has been filed. It's been accepted by PUC. We haven't received any comments yet back. Right now the proposed go live date or go effective is December 1. I don't anticipate any pushback on that, but if they get back to us with anything, we'll work through it.
Spring Street.
Yeah.
Did the crew get out this morning and fill in those bad washboard?
Yeah, they smoothed that out yesterday and today. Yep.
Good.
Yep,
Good.
they were out there.
Staffing update?
Yeah, staffing update. As you know, we were working with KMA Recruitment Service to help fill the position of district engineer. I'm happy to report we have 2 very strong candidates that we've been through the second interview phase with one of them, and we have another follow-up interview with the other one tomorrow. Both of these candidates are very qualified. It's gonna make for a very difficult decision. They both, I feel if we only had one, we would have somebody really good to fill this position. So we have two very, very strong applicants, so we're excited about that.
Local,
One lives in Durham and one lives in Rumford right now.
relatively local.
Yep, but the one in Rumford is looking to relocate, so. Yeah, no, very positive there. The rest of the district, we're fully staffed and functioning well. Things are going good. We're rolling.
Nice.
So you-
When do you expect to make that decision?
I want to make it by the end of this week. Again, they're both very strong candidates. We got some follow-up questions to ask the individual tomorrow. It's myself, Mike, and our HR customer service manager, who's in the interview process. We've been communicating with KMA, and you know, I feel like we just need to get through tomorrow's, and we're gonna have to sit down and make that decision. Who's the best fit? I feel like we've got some. I'm telling you, they're really, really qualified.
And if the
They're
opposite,
both engineers, they both have several years' experience, water and sewer, you know, they're really good candidates.
and if the offer is accepted, you would anticipate starting
One of
December?
them is I don't wanna give too much away in a public meeting,
No,
but one of them is, would need about 30 days, the other one said he could start in 2 weeks,
Okay,
so,
December.
November, 2 weeks from Friday, I'm hopeful,
Nice.
yeah, hopefully.
Good to see this turning out positive.
Yes, very latest December, so,
anything else, Mike?
that's it.
On the budget, in the bond, is the sewer district also looking for a budget increase, a rate increase next year? Or would it be both entities, both utilities, or just one?
We have 8% budget for both.
For both?
8% for both,
Yeah.
8% for each.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The sewer district's bond is driven by the Washington Street pump station upgrade. The sewer district is going to increase what they pay the water districts for meters based off half the depreciation of the meters. So right now, the water district receives $50,000 a year from the sewer district. You're gonna be receiving 100,000 plus half of the costs of all the camstrup fees and that type of stuff. So the sewer isn't, you know, water does bear the brunt of the bond and the cost, but
My question, I guess, was kind of, as far as the ratepayer goes, their increase will be 8%
Yeah.
on their monthly
Yeah.
bill, not just half of the 8% because of
Right,
water is
correct.
one.
Yeah.
correct, no, it's a really, really good question, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
There'll be an 8% increase on both, and I haven't run the numbers yet. I will do this for the next meeting of what that means to an average ratepayer, what the increase would be.
What is the average residential?
For sewer right now, it's $350 a year. For water, it's just shy of $400. Compared to Vassalboro's $600 a quarter, we're doing pretty good. No,
How far from the lowest are we?
I think on sewer, we are the lowest. And on water, we're like second or third from the lowest.
But I think we're
Good
the
water.
lowest large urban
Yes, yeah,
system.
yep. Yeah, we're very low rates.
So we're tentatively talking $60 to a $90 increase annually.
I think it'd be more along the lines of maybe both water and sewer bill, you might see $20 more a year per person, roughly, somewhere in there.
Okay,
We'll have those numbers for you next month.
yeah, okay,
Yep.
that's good. It's not a big shock.
All right, trustee open session?
I just had one question about the Spring Street project.
Yes.
You said you had to do LCRs, is that what you said?
Lead and copper rule revision, yeah, the inspections, yep.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Spring Street was just a main replacement, we could do the services, but the LCRR was a big inventory that we had to submit to EPA last year by October. And basically, it's an account of what everybody's service line is made of throughout the entire city.
Oh, that's
And we
right,
needed
okay.
to know both our portion and the private portion. So we have about 2,000 unknowns on the private side. So that's where when we do the meter installs, we can get in there and we'll get that information. So we'll check all those boxes. On our side, there's about 600 services that we don't know what it is on our side, but it's highly unlikely based off the age of the buildings that it's lead, because they're newer, more modern homes. We just don't have a physical record that says it's copper, you know, so we have to hydro excavate, it's copper.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody have anything else? Do I hear a move to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bob.